Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Hi, Foffit. You've reached Mel from Bella, the podcast that feels like a voice note from your best friend. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. If you're a new listener, I'm so excited that you're here. This is like the inner group chat, okay, that only a certain amount of people know about, and the fact that you're here means that you're catching up, okay? And if you're a returning listener, I'm so glad you're back. We have so much to catch up on this week, apart from I have been ill. I finally caught the dreaded, horrific, awful flu that every single person seems to have caught at the moment, and it was awful. My week's been a washout. I wish I had exciting fun things to tell you about, but I've got no exciting fun things to tell you about, apart from the fact that I went home last weekend and it was really nice. And I go home for Christmas next Friday. So in exactly 7 days, I'll be home for Christmas, which just feels like I feel ready. I feel really ready for a break. I feel really ready to go home. I feel really ready just for a little moment of just like, you know, I love the run up to Christmas, but it is busy and I feel like it's just a lot to fit in all at once, which is both lovely and also quite a lot. And I know I said we're leaning into it, and I am trying to lean into it, but that doesn't make it any easier, okay? I am still feeling a little bit overdone. But I went home on Friday. Did the podcast, went for a walk. It was cute. Didn't do that much. My fringe is not having a good day today. Then on Saturday, went out for lunch with my grandma. It's her birthday. Then came back, went to an engagement party. Then on Sunday, watched Stranger Things. And now I'm in it, guys. And I'm really sad to say it's not out again until Boxing Day. And I just think I want to save that. I'm not sure what to do for New Year's Eve. I feel really unsure about it. I don't know whether to stay in Scarborough, stay in my hometown longer with my family, because we don't get to see them that much, or come back to Manchester and do like a dinner party. My gut says Manchester. I'm feeling Manchester. I just feel like I will have been home for a good 10 days and I might want to have a few days here before I start work again. I go back to work on the 5th, which is such a nice break. And Christmas has fallen really well this year, and in a non-overly planning way, I had a look at the podcast, how Christmas falls for the next 3 years. The next bad one is 2029, so we don't need to stress about it. Every other Christmas up until 2029 is a good one, and so that makes me feel very happy. This week, though, I feel like being ill reminded me that I can't do everything I think I can do, and that I will reach burnout once again, no matter how much joy and fun I'm having with everything that I'm doing. That doesn't mean that you're not doing too much, and doesn't mean you can't get ill, and doesn't mean that you are a superhero. I think I have thought that burnout can only come when you're stressed, and when you're not feeling happy, and when you're doing things you don't want to do, and like that's where burnout stems from. And that's not wrong. Okay, it's not wrong, but I'm starting to realize that even if you're loving everything that you're doing and trying really hard at everything and you think you're managing to balance everything, that doesn't mean that you are, and it doesn't mean that you're still allowing yourself to have breaks, and it doesn't mean you're not pushing yourself too much, because thinking that burnout can only happen when I'm doing things that I'm unhappy with or when I'm stressed has, I think, made me this year lean so much more into the podcast and creating and doing all these things that I kind of thought, I can't get burnt out from it. Like, it's actually impossible because I enjoy it so much and it's such a fun, great part of my week. And I just thought it's impossible. And that is not the case. I'm starting to realise that, guys, that's not the case. Because this week, as well as feeling ill, I think the illness makes you feel unmotivated. And I just was lying there like, I have no motivation to do anything, and I think it's tricky when you're ill because you really start to go down the have I lost my spark mentality, and that is a dangerous mentality to go down because no, you haven't lost your spark, you're just poorly and you just need to rest and recover. But like the toxic amount of productivity in me is like, you have so much to do. You have so much you should be doing now. You cannot just lie there. You need to do things. And I'm just like, why? Why do I have this constant need to prove myself through the things that I do? And this kind of links nicely into this week's podcast episode because last week I recorded the podcast episode and I got really, after I edited it, I was like, Bella, you've done the same topic twice. No, after I recorded it, I was like, you've done the same topic twice. What's going on? And then I edited it last night and I was like, no, there is a difference here. The first one we talked about ambition. The second one we talked about building a soft life you don't need a holiday from. And the third one, to end this mini-series that I've accidentally, unintentionally recorded because I think it's actually just been an evolution of how I'm feeling, is that how you think about yourself and your self-worth and how you love yourself and where you find that validation in you has been the biggest thing that has changed this year for me. It's been the biggest thing, my mindset about who I am, who I want to be, where I want to go. It's been the biggest thing that's transitioned into something good. And I think that's why this is the final kind of, I guess in the saga, we'll call them a saga. This is the final one that I want to chat about with you, because I think it nicely kind of closes off a lot of the learning that I've had for this year and one of the biggest transitions that I've experienced. And so this week's podcast episode, we are talking about self-love, self-worth, and making sure that your motivation for who you want to be is well placed, because so much of it this year in my life, for as long as I can remember, hasn't been. And I think it's something that we need to chat more about. So on to the content part of this week's podcast episode, where this week we are discussing self-worth, validation, and making sure you love yourself regardless of what you're doing, because as a topic in our 20s, it's one we have to handle head on, because it feeds into every single thing that we do. Right. The thing is that I want your motivation for the things that you're doing in your life to be in the best possible place. I want you to want to do things because it makes you happy and it brings you joy. And I want you to want to do things because it's something you can see yourself doing and it's something that makes you proud of yourself. And I want you to want to do things because not how it makes other people see you, because of how it makes you see yourself. Because when you see yourself doing things, you're like, this is something I always wanted to do. This is something I always thought I could do. I want those to be the motivational reasons. What makes you drawn to an idea or an achievement or an accomplishment. I want those to be the things that are motivating you to get to where you want to get to. But for me this year, they weren't. And for quite a few weeks they weren't, for quite a few years they weren't. And it made me do things because I wanted people to look at me and think I was doing great. I wanted people to think that I was impressive. I wanted people to think that I was successful, because in my eyes, if people thought that, then that's what made me me. Then that's what made me those things. Like other people agreeing, yep, you are successful, yep, you are doing well, yep, you are something to be proud of, made me something to be proud of, rather than being that way just as I was. And it took me leaving the job and not having any of the things that I thought defined me as successful, to then look at the people I love and realise they still loved me the same. They still loved who I was. They still loved who I was becoming. They still saw value in me, and my friends still liked me, and I still had good things to offer. And it took me walking away from everything I thought made me great to realise that greatness wasn't in the things that I was doing. It wasn't in the things I'd achieved. It wasn't in the things and the places that I'd got myself into. It wasn't even in the conversations. It was in me already, because it was me and all of those things and all of those destinations I was driving to. I was in the driver's seat. It was me on the steering wheel. It was me pressing the gas. It wasn't just this random car driving to wherever I thought it should go. It was me, and I was the person directing all of that. And I think that's really been the life lesson of this entire year, is realising that losing, and I think, do you know what? I do actually think it links to losing your spark, because to me, losing my spark wasn't like, it cost me losing myself to realise that when I lost myself, the things that were surrounding me, the things that I were doing wasn't making me find myself. They weren't the things that were going to bring me back to that true version of me. They weren't the things that were going to make me happy, which then took me removing those from my life, because I was like, well, if they're not making me happy, I don't know what is going to make me happy, but I need to make space for something that does. And I think that's something that we often overlook when we're trying to find our way to getting back to where we want to be and who we want to be and the achievements that we want to have, is that you have to make space. You can't carry on and expect things to still fill up. You know, there's a limited amount of space in our lives, and sometimes you have to remove things in order for even better things to fill it. And so I lost who I was. I felt really unhappy. I removed the things from my life that I thought were going to make me happy, and I realized they weren't making me happy. And then slowly but surely, that space of who I wanted to be and who I wanted to grow into started to fill with things that actually made me happy, because I started to really question, like, who am I in all of this? What are the things that make me feel great? And I started to actually see myself, as a person, not just as this constant CV. Do you know what? For all of my early 20s, and still a bit now, I see myself through my achievements rather than myself as a person. Like, if I was to describe myself, I'd probably tell you what I've done. I wouldn't tell you who I am. Because it feels easier to say that, like, yeah, I have a podcast and I have a job and I do social media and I've done a master's and yeah, lived in London, all of these things, these qualifiers for the person I am, feel so much easier to say than, like, I am a kind person and I like making people feel good, and I really love, finding these commonalities and these common threads that we have between all of us and discussing them and making people feel seen. Like I'm not going to say that to someone, but it's weird that we're not going to say that, because that's actually so much of a true answer. When someone asks like, who are you? That's the real things. It's not the things that you've done, but we're taught to, through the things that we achieve, that kind of explains who we are. It's the outline of our personality. It's the way that we kind of explain who we are. It's the way we give evidence to who we are. And often needing to give evidence in that way, I think, has made me see my achievements as the things that validate me. And this year, I finally said, no, we're not doing that anymore. Like we said in the last podcast episode, we built a soft life that we don't need a holiday from. I started to think about the things that actually made me happy, the things that made me me, the things that I saw myself out of the achievements that I was doing. And I wish I could go back 2 years and teach myself this lesson then. I wish I could teach myself that, in your heart and in your gut when something's right for you. When it's something that isn't right. When you're not happy and it's been a continual unhappiness. And when you have to get yourself out of something. And you have that strength and resilience in you, and you will be able to figure it out. But you don't know if you don't try. And I kind of, in these moments where you have that self-doubt and you have these unsure moments, though they're kind of fleeting. We all have those moments where we question what we're doing and where we're going and who we're growing into, and is this going to be the right thing? We all have those moments. But I think it's when it's those prolonged moments that turn from weeks into months, into, in my case, years, where you start to think, there must be more to life than this. There is. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking the questions. And I think a lot about, how people say you can't not want something that isn't meant for you. Like if you're dreaming something, if there's something in your heart that you want to be able to do, it's because you've already achieved it. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And apparently it's because if you understand physics, okay, I got this from a TikTok video. I'm going to take no credit, right? This physics fact. I don't know if it's real. So let's also caveat that. But in your current self, how I was saying, like, you are always past you, current you, and future you, because you're all like related to other time frames, blah, 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 blah. I think I didn't get it wrong, but apparently there is never a past, there is never a future. You are just the present. That, like, this current moment that we are in right now, that is the only truth. And we try and make there be a past and a future to make us make sense. We try to think of time as linear, but time isn't linear. Time is constant. Time is all around. You are only ever in this present moment. You are everything and you are nothing. You are only ever the one version of yourself that you are right now. And because of that, the things that you want for your future are currently the things you want in your present. And the reason you want them in the future is because you think you can have it. It's like linked to the reason you want them in your current present moment is because you have them in the future. And these wants and these desires, they are part of your path of where you're going. And I think it kind of links into like your overall path with the universe of where you think you're going to go in life and what you think you want to do. You have this deep sense of knowing about the life that you want to have. And you have these experiences and you're kind of like a little metal detector working out where you want to go and who you want to be. And you follow along this path and you start to find out new decisions. But the only way you're going to get in the wrong path is when you stop listening to the metal detector that's aligned with your own thoughts and your own thinking. When you start to listen to a metal detector that's listening to someone else, that's aligned to their wants, their opinions, what everyone else is thinking about you. Because then you're not really listening to your past. Then you're not really in your own past, present, future. You are the only current version. That's not you. Because you are not in you. You are constantly thinking about how you're being perceived from the people around you. And I think that's something that's taken me a long time to realise. And I think I'm still realising it, to be honest. Like, I've been having a bit of a wobble, I guess. I think, like, social media can be kind of hard because you're constantly thinking, like, oh, I should be doing better. And it's so numerical that it's really easy to validate, are you doing well? Are you gaining enough followers? Are you growing quick enough? It's really easy to see that about yourself because you can literally see the numbers going up or going down. And I think that can be a tricky thing to get my head around because I'll see other creators growing quicker and I'll be like, I should be doing so much better. I should be trying harder. I should be doing more. And it's kind of tricky to be able to look at, like, what you're creating and be like, is enough, because the reason you're creating should be ultimately for you. It shouldn't be a numbers game. It shouldn't be that you're owed a following or that you owe people to follow you. That should never really be the case. It's much more that you're creating something and you hope that people resonate, but even if they didn't resonate, you'd carry on creating. And I think this has been the ultimately big source of my wobble recently, of thinking I should be doing more and kind of wanting to find out the secret code of to how I could get it all to work. But the more I do. I keep finding new things and I'm starting to realize, you know what? I'm never going to know it all. But knowing in myself that my self-worth isn't attracted or attached to these things that I'm learning how to do and I'm growing through, I think is probably the most important thing. Because, like I said, my self-worth was so often attached to these things, but my self-worth being attached to those things made them so much more important than just simply working out how to learn how to best optimize an algorithm. Not only was I learning that, I was also basically saying how much I was worth, my value as a person. Everything about who I am, the outline of who I am, was based on how I thought the world saw me. And I took a step back from that this year. And do you know what? I feel happier than I've ever felt. And I am building this life that I really am enjoying. And yeah, I still have wobbles and moments. I don't think that's ever going to not be the case. But I'm having more conversations like this. And I think when we have these conversations and we chat about this, we start to realise, like, I'm not the only one feeling like that. I'm not the only one questioning who I am and where I'm going. But I'm starting to realise my positioning in all of this has changed quite a lot. Because I used to be like, if only I could do that, if only I could leave, if only I could change my life, if only I could make a new decision. And now I'm making those decisions and I'm starting to be like, oh, well, it's still not perfect, but I know that I'll work out a way. I know I'll get myself through this. I know that the things, I'm still valuable in all of this. And I've started to feel a lot less anxious. My self-worth isn't always related to the things I'm doing. I'm feeling more confident in where I'm going and not really more confident in the plan. I still feel a bit unsure about the plan, but I find comfort in, like a lot of people say, when you're doing the right thing, when you're making the right move, you don't know where you're going because you're currently so aligned with where you should be. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, to be honest, but I do know it kind of provides me a bit of comfort. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but maybe that means the things I'm doing are right because I'm so on the right path that I'm making right. Maybe I'm just conning myself, guys. Maybe I'm just conning myself, but it has made me feel a bit better. And so this year, I've learned to really question where my validation and my want to do things from comes from. And I've learned that the people you love and the people you want to love you will still love you regardless of what you're doing. And having to step away from everything that I thought made me lovable and finding out that people still loved me was the biggest lesson that I think I needed, because it made me realise that no matter what I do, I'll always have those relationships and I'll always have the people that love me and I'll always have a love for myself. And I think in my 25th year, it's a good lesson to have learned. But anyway, on to the question part of this week's podcast episode. And if you don't already follow me on Instagram, firstly, what you're doing. And if you don't already follow the podcast, what you're doing, please press follow and give us a little rate and review and send this episode to a friend because I feel like they would enjoy it. But the episode, I post a story on Instagram every single week, usually Thursday night if I remember, Friday morning if I forget. And I get you guys to send in your questions for this week's podcast episode. And so it's time to get onto that part. Oh, Opal. So let's move on to that subsection of the podcast. What's your favourite Christmas tradition? Right, every Christmas we lay out the reindeer runway. I don't know if we'll do it this year because, as you know, I am 25. But we lay out the reindeer runway, and Mum used to make like reindeer food. We'd all make reindeer food together, which was like edible glitter, porridge, basically any baking ingredients that we had that made it magical and sparkle. Then we'd go and like put out the reindeer food, and then we'd go and do the like letters up the chimney, and then we'd go and look for like Father Christmas and watch him out the window. And I swear one year I saw him. And honestly, I've never felt such excitement as that before. I remember it like vividly, like I saw him. And then like we'd go to sleep. And I think that whole tradition, I loved that. But I also I'm really enjoying how the traditions are changing as we're getting older into becoming, I think you become more friends with your family. Like I have become more like seeing your parents more as your friends, less as parents. Like, obviously, they're always going to be your parents, but you could start to have more of a friend relationship the older that you get. And so seeing new traditions like going to the pub on Christmas Eve and having more of that type of Christmas, because it's not going to be that way forever. At some point, like there'll be grandchildren and then Christmas will go back to being the other way, but there's this like brief period of time where we're having some older traditions too, and I think that's really nice. And so my favourite traditions will always be the reindeer runway, the reindeer food, the Father Christmas letters, which you best believe I'll be doing this year again. But I'm also really enjoying the kind of newer traditions, the newer ones as we get older. What has been your biggest achievement this year? This is such a good question. Because it's like, what's my achievement? Is my achievement the podcast achievement? Getting signed by a management agency was such a big goal for mine for so long, and I did it. I got signed by a management agency. And then I think being signed by a management agency was huge. Finding a job, do you know what? I think finding a work-life balance that I feel really happy in. And I know I've banged on about it, but I honestly really, really feel it. Just feel like I've managed to create a life that I feel really happy in, and I feel very grateful for that. But then also up-leveling the podcast, management agency, finding a job, work-life balance that I really enjoy. Like, compared to the start of the year, I feel in such a better place, and I'm really grateful for that. And I just feel happy. I'm finishing therapy. Oh my God, guys, there's been a lot of things this year. Top Christmas book recommendation. Wintering. Guys, I want you to read Wintering really badly, but it's not really a Christmas book. I just think it's a really good book, and I think you should read it. It's kind of festive. It's all about like slowing down in the winter months, and I think it's also pretty short. I really want you to read it. And final question. You're dining at the table, and in front of you is the past and future you. What emotions do you feel, and what would you say to them? This is a great question. Okay. I think towards past me, I feel a lot of love, and it's funny. I feel a lot of love and a lot of kind of like, it's good at reassuring emotions, but then to future me, I'm kind of like, tell me how it is. Like, what have we got to know? Like, is this going to work out? I feel a lot more, not anxiety, but more maybe nervousness. I think that's the difference. I feel more nervous towards future me, but then reassuring towards past me. And maybe that's a lesson that I should take, that I should be feeling more reassuring towards future me too. I think to past me, I'd say like, you always know the right decision. And even when you think you don't, even when you have no idea how it's going to come together, even when you have no idea how this is going to work out, it tends to work out because you do know the right decision. And I know that's a confusing piece of advice, but you're going to be placed with forks in the road of your life, and you're going to have to make decisions. And weirdly, you're going to make the right ones. And you always are going to make the right ones because you'll manage to navigate a situation that you like out of whatever decision you make, because you can keep making new decisions until you finally made the decision that you want to settle on. And then to future me, I'd want them to tell me, what lesson do I need to learn quicker? What is the key to everything right now that is like, I need to unlock a little bit more? I kind of would want to know how everything's going to pan out, but then I also like the element of not knowing. I think I just want to know, is it going to work out? I'd want a bit more confirmation, but then you've got to have that confirmation yourself, so maybe I'd ruin it. Guys, I don't know. But I've rambled for long enough. Thank you for listening to this week's podcast episode. I'm just going to ignore my fringe, okay? It's really annoying me today. I hope you are having a brilliant, brilliant week, and I can't wait to chat to you again next week. If you don't follow the podcast or me on Instagram or TikTok, make sure you do at Mel from Bella. And if you don't already, rate and review the podcast, and you haven't shared it with a friend, what are you doing? Please go do that before this episode ends. But I love you. I hope you have a brilliant week, and I can't wait to speak to you soon. Bye. Mwah.